There's a few problems I've seen SMBs over the last decade get themselves caught up in time and time again when trying to implement and invest in automated solutions to help them with their business. Now, AI and automation is getting a lot of attention right now, rightly so, but they kind of get lumped into the same category. The popularity of these two as a combo is actually more recently attributed to the rise of AI and it being able to highlight very easily the benefits that companies can get from implementing AI and automation technologies. But ultimately, automation is nothing new. Tools like Zapier and Make.com have been around for the best part of a decade. And I've been helping SMBs build systems and automations for as long as these tools have been around. And while AI makes the gains that you can get from these tools much, much more appealing, small businesses are still running into exactly the same problems that are costing them thousands of pounds or dollars, depending on where you're from, and wasting months and months of time, potentially years of time. Today, we're going to dive into the three biggest problems that I see time and time again. And I just want to highlight these because if you're thinking about adding automation and AI to your business, you definitely should, but just make sure you think about it in the right way first before just going gung-ho and adding things in. So the three biggest problems that I see consistently or have seen over the last 10 years are focusing on the wrong part of the business to automate, automating things too early, and thirdly, and probably most importantly, now that we have AI in the scene, it's not understanding your critical business data. So in today's video, I'm going to break those down step by step and show you how to avoid those problems and save yourself thousands of wasted dollars and probably months of wasted time. But before we jump in, if you are a small business owner, do not forget to like and subscribe. We've got a lot of this type of content coming. All right, let's get into it. All right, guys, the jacket's off and we're in whimsical. Let's dive in here. We're about to get serious. So first things first, automating the wrong thing. As I mentioned, I see this all the time, right? So let me just highlight this by just demonstrating a very basic layout of how a business functions. This is extreme simplification, but you're going to get the idea, right? So let's say throughout the life cycle of the customer journey, you have these key functions in your business. You've got marketing, which then leads to sales, which leads to onboarding, to delivery, and then to support / aftercare. Now, what tends to happen is the easiest place to start with automation and, layering in AI and nice workflows and stuff is typically onboarding and delivery. But this is a little bit of a red herring, really, because a lot of the times it depends on what stage of business that you're at. But a lot of the small businesses that I've worked with, they actually don't really have a problem with onboarding and delivery. So it's kind of like a moot point to focus on automation and building out systems here and trying to process everything out. Because don't forget, if you're building out an automation, it means that you really need to have your processes nailed down. There are repeatable tasks in a process that you want to remove via automation or make more efficient via automation. When really, the problem that most businesses have is, in an early stage, in this example specifically, is marketing and sales, right? I can definitely relate to this. One of the businesses that I co-own is an agency, and we spent loads of time automating onboarding and delivery and all that kind of stuff. And while it was good, they weren't like the burning problems that we had in the business. The burning problems were around marketing and the sales process. There was a lot more opportunity for the sales process in regards to building out a good sales process automation workflow than there was in onboarding and delivery. And that causes multiple problems. But essentially, this feels good because you know how to onboard somebody, you know how to do the delivery of a service or a product. So it's easy to kind of start there, but it's kind of pseudo productivity, really. And it's kind of a big fat waste of time. You just need to focus on figuring out what the biggest problem is in your business and then look there to layer in AI and automation. And in some cases, the problem doesn't really require AI and automation, so save yourself the headache, right? Sometimes you just need to try different things, and it's not a big lever for automating or layering in AI. So first off, you really just need to understand, okay, what's the biggest problem in the business right now that we need to solve? Does it need automating? Does it need to have AI and all of that stuff layered onto it? So that's one thing that I've seen time and time again, people wasting months of time on. So now if we come back over to our beginning, number 2, we've got automating too early. So what do I mean by that? It was funny, as I was kind of making this video or making the notes for this video, I have this visualize value Chrome extension, which kind of just gives like really nice nuggets of wisdom. And it was quite good timing that it actually showed me this as I was making some notes. If you can't describe what you are doing as a process, then you don't know what you're doing. And this is kind of highlighted or illustrated really beautifully here as all the visualized value stuff is. Highly recommend checking that out if you haven't already. So what I'm getting at here with automating things too early are the fact that In a lot of cases, you try to layer on automation or build out automated workflows for processes that have not been fully battle tested yet in multiple situations. And you can end up locking yourself into an automated process where actually you needed more flexibility to test what's going to work best in specific situations. So let me give you an example of that, right? So somebody at your company is an unstoppable, great idea machine, as illustrated by this meme here, and they come up with an idea for a proposal generation automation. Funnily enough, we've just done a video on proposal automation in, I think, maybe 2 videos ago. But let's say here, a marketing agency with 10 employees wants to scale faster and decides to automate their proposal process. So what do? They invest in a custom proposal generator that pulls from templates. They integrate with their CRM to auto-populate the data, automatic pricing calculations, automatic follow-up processes around the proposal. Well, actually, they've just invested a bunch of time, energy, and potentially money in building out this solution that really didn't require it at this stage of the business that they're in. Why might that be? Well, maybe they're only generating around 5 proposals per month. In that case, is this really needed? It can end up causing more problems than good, to be honest. So you really need to understand where you're at and if you really need to automate and completely process out this part of the business. And it's kind of related to point number 1, right? Around automating the wrong part of the business. Some of the things that might appear in this kind of situation are maybe the CRM has got inconsistent data in it. So whenever they're trying to generate the proposals through the automation, it's just inconsistent. And then they end up having to go into the proposal and change everything anyway. Premature standardization. This is kind of what I was just talking about, which is you've processed everything out when actually you kind of really needed the flexibility because you were still figuring out what resonates the best with the clients, what type of proposal template works best, what type of proposal follow-up system works best. You need the flexibility manually to be able to test those things out. If you automate everything too early, you've kind of lost the ability to test and figure out in an easy way. As I mentioned earlier as well, maybe the volume doesn't justify the investment. You lose personalization, and you can end up in a situation where, with a complex automation like this, you're spending more time bug fixing and error handling than you would have been just creating the proposals from a simple template in the first place manually. So you really have to weigh up, right? Am I doing this too early right now? Because I've seen this so many times, people trying to automate processes that just didn't need to be automated at all. So is it a complete waste of time and money? Yeah, probably, but it was fun and it felt good while we were doing it. Maybe that's a bit extreme, but you get the point, right? This can be an extreme waste of time and money if you haven't absolutely nailed down the process before you start to automate and layer on those efficiencies. So now let's cover the third and final point, which is I see a lot of small businesses not really understanding what critical business data they have access to. I need to think of a different term here rather than critical because it makes it sound like it's an emergency in some way, shape, or form. But what I mean here, and you'll see as I explain it, is that there is a bunch of business data that businesses have that can really improve the business and are the unique value of the business as well. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. So if you'll remember a couple of videos ago, maybe you've seen this, maybe you haven't, I'll post the video up here somewhere. We talked about data silos being one of the biggest problems right now. So, you've got a bunch of tools with a load of different data housed across all of them. And my belief is that having a central hub and the key business data, maybe that's a better term, not critical, the key business data in one place is far more beneficial, especially in this new world when we are layering on AI, not just automation, into our workflows. Because if you have a bunch of data like your project information's over in Asana, you've got your accounts information over in QuickBooks, you've got your CRM and customer information over here in these CRM tools, and you've got a bunch of SOPs and stuff like that in Google Docs. All of this stuff is separated, but by bringing it together, it unlocks the ability for us to be able to use AI in a much more creative way. An example of this, again, I'll go back to one of the businesses that I co-own here, is we were trying to solve a sales and marketing problem, right? So we had a bunch of data all in one place in one tool that we were using at the time. And our lead data was kind of living over here in Meta, right? So we were running Facebook ads, and there's a bunch of data that kind of lived in Facebook ads that we kept having to go to pull into the reports and try and make sense of it and try and make sure everything's matched up. What I mean is things like source, medium, campaign tracking that you get with paid ads. That data lived over here. So what we did is we moved it into our central data hub, right? So that it sat alongside the customer data and everything else. And what that allowed us to do is pull really, really comprehensive cohort analysis reports on the marketing and sales activities that we had, because we had all the data in one place, and it's really easy to keep track of. So that's just one example of the benefits of bringing data into one place. But I just want to make sure that I'm clear here is I don't mean that every single piece of data from all of these different tools that you potentially use needs to be brought into this one place. It's understanding what is the key data that is housed in those tools and then bringing it into one hub. Now, I'm advocating for Airtable at the minute just because of the flexibility and the usability of that tool. So I think Airtable is a great one place if you want to bring in as much of your business data into one tool as possible, especially now that it has its pretty advanced interfaces functionality, so you can build out, front ends onto these spreadsheets or databases. But you can check out other videos to have a look at that. So yeah, identifying your key data and then bringing it into one place just unlocks more possibilities. There was a really interesting comment actually from somebody on the previous video when I was talking about data silos. Kolber says, having been part of successful startups and enterprise scale businesses, it's normal to overcomplicate. A simple business structure with clear critical data points should define the data resource. And then this was the interesting part for me, which is the tooling should function around the people/AI using it. And once the initial task is complete, over 80% of the data created will never again be put to productive use. That is super important. Over 80% of the data created will never again be put to productive use. I agree with this. There's been so many times where I've seen companies on this point of data try to collect so much data and build it into their systems that it's kind of overkill. And you really have to ask, why are we collecting this information? All of this to say that if you run a business and you want to make use of automation and AI in the future, you really need to understand what data does your business collect? Where does it come from? What sources does it come from? And how are we actually going to use that information? Collecting data on customers and from marketing activities that you're never really going to do anything, you're just causing bloat within the business, and it makes all of your tools and your systems harder to use. So getting a good understanding of this critical or key business information, business data, is something that I highly, highly recommend. And it's something I've seen many, many businesses not do very well over the course of the last 10 years. So that kind of covers this kind of quality over quantity point, right? I want to give a quick example of what I mean by this. Let's say, for example, you have a lot of meetings in your business with clients or with, team members. Meeting transcriptions is a great example of what I'm talking about here. And if you store your meeting transcription in your CRM alongside, the customer, this is going to provide you a lot of information that you can do a hell of a lot with in the future. You could run sentiment analysis reports on your early stage sales process. You can figure out how to then take the transcripts from client update meetings if you're running a service-based business, and then auto extract all of the tasks from those transcripts and put them directly into, again, your central hub, which is managing your project management tool. So there's a bunch of stuff that you can do with that one piece of data. So with every meeting, collect that meeting transcript. And then the possibilities are kind of endless now that we have the access to AI and also the automation stuff. We kind of covered this already, but the data awareness gap here. So most businesses don't really recognize which data is truly critical for operations, limiting their AI and automation potential. And then I just want to highlight this 80-20 rule as well, because as I was sort of going through this video, this kind of occurred to me that most industries, the data points that are actually valuable for the business, like we're talking about here, they're probably going to be 80% the same. What I mean by that is, let's say if you've got a small business, you're a removals company, like some of my friends are, then if the data points that you're going to collect as a removals company are going to be the same as any other removals company, but there's still going to be that 20% that is unique to your removals company over your competitors or colleagues or peers in the industry. So there's going to be an 80-20 rule there, which obviously unlocks a lot of kind of like system building functionality. And that's why we have industry specific CRMs, industry specific process tools, et cetera, et cetera. That's because they're building off of this 80-20 rule essentially. So as soon as you know a niche, you kind of know like the majority of the way that that niche works and the data that they collect. And then it's just, tweaking with the last 20% that's specific to the business. And then I just finally want to highlight here is that this is always going to be like a work in progress. It's an evolution, right? So it's an evolutionary approach to data. You can't sit down today and understand all of your potential future data needs. It's just not how it works. What you really want to do is figure out, okay, well, how can I understand what data I need to collect now by analyzing the different functions of your business, how work moves through your business, through each team member, step by step, and then understanding the data that is created at each one of those process points. Once you've done that, you can then figure out, okay, well, yeah, we can bring this into a central data hub. We don't need to get everything from everywhere, but we can bring in the important information into a central data hub. And then you can start evolving from there as your business challenges change. Because again, just to bring this back to an example, once we have solved our sales and marketing process for the company that I co-own, we will then run into delivery and service issues, which we will need to solve. And at that point, our data needs are going to change. The information that we're going to need to store in our central hub is going to change, but we can evolve from there a lot quicker and a lot easier with everything being in one place rather than things being scattered all over the show. So that's it for today's video, guys. If you did like this one, do drop a like and a subscribe, and also just let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this? I actually had a really high amount of comments on the previous video where we talked about data silos, and that is one of the biggest problems that I'm seeing right now. So yeah, I'd be keen to know your thoughts here. Like Colbert, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.